Welcome to Life After Trauma. I am so excited to have you here today, Melissa. I cannot wait to talk to you more about both self-care and boundaries. And while we were kind of getting acquainted at the beginning here, we were talking a little bit about how self-care comes from necessity for a lot of us. And I'm hoping we can just kind of jump right in there. I feel like it is very true that we often don't stop and take time for ourselves until we're forced to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I got to. I mean, thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here with you too, by the way, Jessica. So thanks for having me. I know women all over the country, and the common denominator is that as little girls, we got a script that somehow told us that prioritizing everybody else before us was the way to go. Show up, serve, be there, be reliable. Putting yourself first or saying no to helping someone is selfish. Make sure you're not selfish. And never, ever did anyone talk about the fact that you needed to fill your cup so that you showed up well, so that you showed up healthy, so that they got the best of you, that you got the best of you, that it's okay to say no, that not everybody and every opportunity is going to be for you, and that's okay. We didn't get any of that. And so we get to this point where we just keep giving, giving, giving. We're following the script. We're doing the good things. We're getting all those affirmations for being so good and so reliable and so this, and we're exhausted and we're irritable and we're crabby and we're blowing up about something we shouldn't be blowing up about because we're dry. We're in drought. And it's such a backwards way to think that that's the way to operate rather than taking the time, starting your day with some activities that nourish you, that fill you up so you can show up well, thinking clearly, happy to be there, aligned with activities and places and spaces that feel authentic to you, fulfilling to you, aligned with you. None of that gets discussed. And so often we get to 35, 45, 55 and we can't figure out why we aren't happy or more content, more at peace. And we've been going about it backwards. And so just unpacking that script and getting in alignment with who we are. And it is such an interesting conversation. And I hear it time and time again. And so my hope is like, we're going to flip the script on this. And guess what? Everybody wins when we do that. Nobody wins when we don't. But I got there by hitting my own wall, and had to unpack and find a way. I just knew I'm like, I cannot live like this anymore. This is not sustainable. It's not working. And it's not working for so many other women around me and in my life as well.
I have a similar story. As we were talking about at the beginning here, I do work in law as well. And it's obviously a stressful area to work in. And just through going to my 9 to 5 job, it was it's so exhausting. I was very unhappy. I tried different things, and one of them was alcohol. I tried drinking and numbing myself every night. I tried a bunch of different unhealthy things. And then I was like, this is not helping. And all of these things that I'm trying to do to make myself feel better, it's not it. They're not making me feel better. In fact, they're making me feel worse. And I started the real first self-care practice I ever adopted was meditation. I would love to hear about all of the things that you do in your morning to set you up and fulfill you and make you ready for the day.
The first thing I do in the morning is like meet myself where I'm at. So that might mean a rigorous walk first thing, or that might mean a slow coffee and journaling. I look at my day. What is in my day? How do I need to prepare myself? How do I need to be showing up? Do I have several recordings? Do I have several meetings? And I try to do that even the night before, like what's ahead of me so that I can prepare properly. And then I draw from those tools in my tools box, and they require quiet time, breathing and drinking my coffee, not getting on my phone right away, doing a little free journaling, and sometimes just walking outside and taking the sun on my face, allowing myself to wake up because I am not a morning glory. I can operate in the morning if I have to, but I'm not a quick starter. I also know that if I've got, an 8 or 8:30 appointment somewhere else, I need to get going, get awake. So that might mean going, putting on my, you know, winter clothes and going outside and taking a walk around the block with my husband for 15, 20, 30 minutes to get my juices flowing. Come back, do the journaling, get my shower, get myself a little more invigorated. So those are the kinds of things I consider, but I really look ahead to how I need to be prepared for the day to help inform
Mhm.
what I do. Another thing I'm really aware of is the emotions I'm feeling and processing. I might write those things down and see, is there anything here that needs to be unpacked that's impeding me, that's getting in my way? And I heard you had a guest on in the fall that I thought she said this really well. And I say this all the time. Emotions are our friends. They are clues. They are indicators. I do not believe in good or bad emotions. There are harder
Mhm.
and easier emotions, but they're all necessary and they're there to help us. And our body is not against us, it's for us. And she's trying to let us know what we need. So if I'm feeling a little more angsty or tight or like, what's happening? There's something I need to process. Did I not eat something that's sitting with me well? Just kind of unpacking that, being aware. I lived out of disassociation for so much of my life until about 5 years ago that I really have learned the value into tapping into and being present in all those spaces. My hope is that have some tools and then meet yourself where you are. Which of these
Mhm.
tools is going to be helpful to me this morning that I want to access? And so many times people don't know where to start. And I'm like, write down 5 activities that nourish you. What are 5
Mhm.
activities that nourish you? And start there. And which one of those can I incorporate? I also hear a lot from people. I don't have time. I got to get up. I got to get the kids out the door. I got to make the lunches. I got to drop them off to
Mhm.
school. I got to be. I'm like, okay, in that space and time, you might take a shower. What is some music you can listen to help you get ready for your day, or a podcast you can listen to? When you're driving to work, to school, you've dropped the kids off, you got some time in the car. Do you just need quiet? No noise,
Mhm.
just quiet, or some calming music. Or again, the favorite podcast. What's something that's going to help you reset? Meditation. You look at the time you already have instead of trying to like find new time. It's there. Just what do you need to do with it? How much time do you spend scrolling?
Mhm.
Okay, instead of spending 15 to 30 minutes scrolling in the morning, maybe you take that time to do some journaling or go for a walk or do a 15, 20-minute yoga or just sit quietly and have your coffee without any noise and whatever it is that fills your cup and helps you to feel like you're starting your day here and not we start our days by the time so many times we get to start our day we've already had a day and we're already charged up and we're at this hyper vigilant high space. It's like, oh my gosh, that is not the way I want to start my work day. I mean, you're at law. I mean, that you got to be clear and concise and fresh, and you don't want to start here in hypervigilance. And that's what I did for years. I'm saying this because I did that for
Mhm.
years and I was wore out by noon and falling asleep by 3 and
Yeah.
grabbing a coffee instead of feeling refreshed. I can honestly say I'm not
Yeah.
falling asleep at 3 anymore because I've found ways, and I pay attention to my body. If I am feeling
Mhm.
myself stiffening up, I will stop for 5 minutes, do a box breathing exercise. So, yeah, it's really about staying in tune to your body and giving her what she needs out of that toolbox that I've incorporated over time. There are some things that did not work for me that I was like,
Mhm.
that's not for me. That doesn't work for me. I'm going to try this instead. So also be patient with yourself as you're trying things.
There are so many things that you just said. First, I want to say I'm really happy that you're talking about finding that time that is already there instead of
Mhm.
trying to make time, because I do feel like that is one of the biggest barriers or maybe excuses that
Yeah,
people
both.
have. I love that idea. And what I'm hearing from you is that a lot of it is about knowing yourself.
Hmm.
You need to know
Yep.
what things do work for you and what doesn't work for you. And like you just said, you do need to be patient with yourself. How do you suggest for somebody who's just starting out, maybe they feel
Mhm.
guilty about even taking time for themselves. How do you suggest that they start to discover or try these self-care practices?
Yeah, the guilt piece is a huge one. And it will linger for a while because you have been programmed to think that way. And your nervous system responds according to what it knows. And it treats that as safe because it's familiar. And I know you've talked about this on here before, rather than no, this is a new way of doing things and a new shift. And trust me, over time, your nervous system will come along with you, but start simple. Don't ask like we ask. So we want to make a change and then we just want to make the change and we're going to make this drastic change. And we get this fed this every year on January 1st. New year, new you. No, new year, take care of you. And
Mm.
what does that look like? Start with naming your character traits. Do you know who you are in this moment? Stop for a minute and think about, am I passionate? Am I impatient? I'm both. Am I loyal? Am I um, invigorated? What is myself? How do I feel about myself? But start with the character traits. And I introduce people on my podcast by their character traits because your roles and your titles are fleeting. They are what you do, they are not who you are. So start with identifying who you are because that's going to then inform when you look at your calendar. Okay, I've identified myself as energetic and loyal and passionate and impatient and vigor, whatever those things are. And then you look at your calendar and you're like, half of my calendar is not aligning with who I am. It is obligations that I feel obligated to fill, but it's not really aligning with who I am. So, what am I going to do about that? Because that's going to, one, create more space for me to take care of
Mhm.
myself. And two, it's going to allow me to realign with things that do fulfill me, do help me. And the guilt thing's going to be there with you. But remember, how do you want to show up for your people? How do you
Mhm.
want to show up for yourself? Do you want to show up wore out and irritable, feeling like a martyr? Or do you want to show up rested and refreshed and present and not thinking about the next thing you got to get to in 15 minutes and that you're running late, but present? Filling your cup will allow you to do that. So that's something you can kind of feed that guilty piece, but start with those character traits and then look at your calendar and look at your job, look at your hobbies, things that you use to fill your time. Do they align with you? And if you don't know who you are, that's your first thing. You're just going to sit each morning and you're going to think about what are activities that nourish me. If I can think of the activities
Mm.
that nourish me, that can then inform me about my character traits. That can help me know of ways I can fill my cup and show up the way I want to for my people rather than the way I have been, which has not been as my healthiest, most authentic, most present self. And
Yeah.
again, so being patient, taking time, but you got to get to know who you are. And those are the places you can start to get to know who you are. And then once you've identified those things to kind of help you stay on track, identify 5 words on how you want to feel the next 6 months. Okay, based on
Mm.
what I've learned, based on what these 3 to 5 things that I've learned about myself, who I am as a person, these things that nourish me, what am I hoping to feel like, and what within this can I start incorporating into my time? What are things I can start saying no to? No is a complete sentence. You don't have to over explain yourself or justify. It is okay to say no, and no is sometimes no, not right now, or it's
Mhm.
just no. And that will be hard for people that aren't used to you saying no. And it will take a few iterations and consistencies for them to believe that, understand that, respect that about you. And also will inform you of the people you're giving your time to. If they're not respecting that about you, it's time to reconsider how much time you're giving to them. And that's a lot, but it's those little things over time add up and they matter. Guests that I had on our podcast in season 4, Valerie Rivera, said something so important and I refer to it all the time. And it is whatever you're saying yes to, you're saying no to something else. So you better be okay with that thing you're saying no to. But going back to just identify those character traits, identify those
Yeah.
things that nourish you. Look at your calendar. And when the guilt comes in, like, I'm doing this because one, I am realizing the value of my time and how I want to show up in it. And two, I want my people to remember me showing up well and
Mm.
full and present with them, not crabby and irritable and snapping. And fresh thinker. Like if you're going to work, you want to be fresh and be able to respond to that in a way that allows you to be fully present and not just scattered because you're so exhausted trying to please everybody all the time.
One thing that I did to try and get to know myself better, I made a note in my phone and I was intentionally paying attention to things that I was giving my time that made me feel good or made me feel not good.
Yep.
And under good was time in nature, time with friends,
Mm-hmm.
time with family. And then under the bad was too much TV, too much scrolling. It was really eye opening.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a great way to create a self care menu.
Yeah.
And you can even put a timestamp beside it. Like, this takes approximately this much time. If you look
Mm-hmm.
at your calendar, like, oh, I have 10 minutes. What could I do in that 10 minutes? But those are great ideas. And I really like that you approach it that way. Let's talk about boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's so hard.
it is.
How? How? Full stop.
If you were to meet me 10 years ago, I had no
Mhm.
boundaries in my life, in my time, in my relationships, nothing. I have 3 grown daughters. They're 30, almost 28 and 26. And they all through their college time had different experiences, internships. Once they started doing their own work and really started hearing about healthy boundaries. The first time they brought this home to my husband and I, it was like, so when we're having a conversation, if I start feeling emotionally overcharged or I start feeling depleted, I'm going to put a full stop to it and ask to come back to it later so I can show it present. It sounded good in theory until she practiced it. And the first time it happened, I was just like, I'm not done talking. We're not done with this conversation. I have more to say. Who are you to tell me when you're going to come back? I was really defensive and really like, she means
Yeah.
this. She's serious about it. And it really forced me to start taking stock in one, if I want to have a relationship with her that's really authentic and healthy that she wants to show up in, I need to respect this. But also, wait a minute, this is unpacking a whole Pandora's box of things and areas where I started realizing the codependency in my relationships and the
Mm.
enmeshment and places that were taxing my time because I was feeling responsible to try to get other people to do things rather
Right.
than just being, nope, not my responsibility, responsible for myself, and then learning how to communicate that. So it's like, okay, so I am no longer responsible for how you show up in the world in XYZ. What I need for myself is I'm going to only show up at this time. And when I do show up with this in this relationship, I am not going to speak in a toxic way about other people. I am not going to talk about family members behind their back when they're not here. I'm just using some random examples here. I am not going to engage in this way anymore. If my husband and I were having a serious conversation or we needed to discuss something serious, we learned how to, like, rather than just getting into it and him shutting down and me wanting to keep talking at him and following him to the other room, it's like, I'm starting to feel like I need a break. So, how about if we take a break and come back to this tomorrow after dinner or on Saturday when I've had time to rest? So, you name a time to come back to it. The whole point being, like, I had to learn this and then I had to practice it and communicate it and then stay with it. Because people that weren't used to me having these boundaries would push back and challenge that and not understand it. I will tell you, there are some relationships in my life that have drastically changed because
Mm.
they could not accept my boundaries. And my boundaries were not walls, they were just simply ways of, like, showing up in this space, in this way, in this place does not feel good to me. It causes anxiety to rise up in my body. I seize up. I don't feel welcome, safe, healthy showing up in that way. So I'm no longer going to be able to show up in this way. And so it wasn't like, you need to do this and you need to do that to make me feel comfortable. No, I was creating this space I needed for my own health, talking in I statements. And then it was up to them on how they received it. Most of the time, people that are for you and care about you are going to respect that and are going to be like, good on you for finding that
Yeah.
time and space. But it was a big shock to me and it takes time. So many of us are people pleasers. So many of us are in codependent, enmeshed relationships that we don't even know that we are in until somebody names it and we have to look at it. This can get really tricky in families where there's a lot of trauma bonds.
Yeah.
Blood is everything. You always show up for blood, regardless of how unhealthy everybody in this, how much generational trauma, whatever there is, until somebody someday finally wakes up and says, I don't want to live like that. And they start expressing different ways of existing. So I give my daughters, especially my oldest, she was the first one to do it, and the other two followed suit, credit for having the courage and enough value in themselves to state, this is how I'd like to move forward. And for my husband and I for taking it and being learners and being willing to learn something new, better, healthier, and it's made all the difference in the world. And like I said, it has changed relationships. I went from emotional dumping in a lot of
Mhm.
spaces to being like, I don't need to do that anymore because I've learned how to process my own emotions. I have
Yeah.
learned how to exist in relationships in a healthy way where I'm responsible for my health and well-being, not somebody else. So that was been my boundaries journey, and I'm still figuring it out. And I still have to like challenge myself on conversations that are difficult. I'm like, you just need
Mhm.
to do this. It's going to feel better. Because then once you know it, you can't unknow it. And then once you've operated in a healthy way and you fall back to an old habit, you notice it right away. Like, I can't stay here. This doesn't feel good. But it takes a lot of practice and a lot of time and consistency.
You just mentioned a lot of hard lessons, like
Mhm.
having that realization of that you're not responsible for somebody else's actions, and also having that value in yourself to be able to say no. This is not something that's negative against the person that the boundary is
Yeah.
with. It is something that you're doing to protect your energy, protect your
Mhm.
peace,
Yep.
and ultimately, it allows you to show up better.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And it is a form of self care. It really is. And the hardest part, I think, for people is when it feels uncomfortable sometimes, or somebody doesn't receive it well, you take that as a sign that you've done something wrong. Or somebody might even say, well, that's really selfish. I've had people, say that to me before. I'm like, actually, no, because the way I was showing up before was not only not good for my health, it wasn't good for anybody here, too. It was unhealthy and toxic and had a lot of unhealthy characteristics to it, and that's not how I want to be showing up in spaces. And so I if that is the way you're processing it, that is yours to deal with, but that is not my intent. And my intent is because I'm noticing that by doing this, I feel this way and I don't want to feel that way
Mhm.
anymore. So I need to make some
Yeah.
changes. And this is what feels good to me. This is what feels healthy to me. And depending on how people receive it, will determine where that time and energy to those spaces and relationships go.
Can we talk a little bit about how somebody might recognize internally when a boundary needs to be set?
As I've been in therapy for, over 5 years now. So this has taken time and unpacking. At first, made it, I had to become aware of how codependent I was in relationships. Did I feel responsible for other people's
Mm.
feelings? Did I feel responsible for other people's decisions, choices, whatnot? So the first question to
Yeah.
ask yourself, do I feel responsible for other people's XYZ? If the answer is yes, that is an automatically notion that you need to rethink and like, okay, not actually true. So where do I need to create some healthy boundaries and spaces so that I'm no longer doing that? And how do I communicate that to people that I have in many ways enabled to be a
Mhm.
certain way because of this felt responsibility? I'm an oldest. I was an oldest daughter in a very emotionally volatile home growing up. And so I felt very responsible for a lot, and I was allowed to and expected to. So this
Yeah.
came like it took my daughter saying, "You're not responsible for your brothers, mom. They are grown ass men. You're not responsible for them and the decisions they make. You're not responsible for that thing that they did over there. That's not on you." So first question is, do you feel that way? Do you look to other people's affirmations for your own value? And if that is a yes, then that is one, go back to that first step we talked about, identifying your character traits. And two, remember, if you're not responsible for others, other people are not responsible to make you feel good, to make you feel fulfilled. That's a clue to you that your value is in the wrong spaces and your value needs to be taken a look at. And that requires getting really into your layers journey and unpacking your layers and the parts of yourself that you've been hiding, that you have shame in, that you've pushed away, that you wish didn't happen. I think to really know your value and appreciate your value and prioritize your wellness without guilt, you have to do the layers work of getting okay with and accepting and acknowledging all those layers about yourself. Then, when you do that, you're like, okay, wait a minute. I want to surround myself with people that recognize that in me too. Who is not
Mhm.
respecting that? Who doesn't honor that? Okay, I need a boundary around that relationship on how much time and energy I give to it. And if I see shifts in how they're showing up, we can adjust those accordingly. So those are some ways, some questions to ask yourself to kind of indicate where those boundaries might exist. And if you have any kind of an allergy to saying no, and I use the word allergy loosely, try it out for size. Just try it out for size. And if even say no up front, never say yes in the moment. Give yourself 24 hours to
Yeah.
go back, look at your calendar, think about how that feels. How does that feel in your body? How do you feel when you're in the presence of those people? How do you feel when you're at that job, at that event with that person, that neighbor, whatever it is, your body, if you're seizing up and you're uncomfortable or you're dreading it, you look at your calendar and you're like, oh God, I have to go there. If you're looking, you need a boundary there. You need to like pass that off to somebody else, give your notice, whatever it is you need to do. But yeah, those are some indicators of be present, don't disassociate, don't push back. Somebody else will pick up the slack. You don't have to do everything. We think we are responsible for saving the world and everyone around us. We are not. We are not responsible for it, nor is it our job to do that. And it is not our job whether somebody else does pick that up. That is not our responsibility unless it's an area we oversee, and that's a different story. But hopefully some one of those things or all of them resonated with people listening today of like, maybe I do need some boundaries there.
That's a wrap on part one, but there's so much more coming your way. In Friday's episode, we'll be talking about how to recognize when a boundary needs to be set, how to face the fear that often comes with it, and what it really takes to have the hard conversations. We'll also explore how to navigate the grief or sense of loss that can come when people don't stay in your life. Plus, I'll share the morning routine that completely changed my life and some alternative journaling methods that might surprise you. You won't want to miss it. If you haven't already, it would mean the world to me if you subscribe. And if you learned something new or felt inspired today, please leave a review and share this episode with someone who needs it. Until next time, take care of your body, mind, and soul.